important and crucial for my freedom. Public support. Much, much more important is that people spread the word, and this is what's happening. This is what's been happening over the last, I don't know how many months, but for quite a while, and it's having a real effect now.
Hi, Reiner.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Welcome back.
Yeah, finally, man, that was a long time.
Yeah, that was a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, this is a major blow to the deep state because that was exactly what they didn't want to happen. They wanted me to shut up so that nobody would be able to listen to me, and nobody would be motivated in any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And now that the OLG Braunschweig, which is a kind of a district court, ruled in favor of me, I mean, they could have done it faster, but it took them 7 months. But now that they've ruled in favor of me, the man who is in charge of pretrial detention here told me he's on my side. And he said, Dr. Fuellmich, you've got to be careful because these guys will do anything to make me shut you down again. So try to stay away from anything that they might be able to use against you.
Yeah.
No problem. I'm a lawyer. I know how to get the message across.
Yeah. I'm recording this, as you know, and I think for the viewers, the Dutch and English-speaking viewers, and it's probably good to before we dive into things, because I've got some topics to cover. To go back a year, I won't go back the whole, from July 2020, but the last year. So on the 24th of April was the oral verdict in Göttingen in the criminal proceedings against you. And correct me if I'm wrong. And then at the end of May came the written verdict. And then end of June, 30th of June, you submitted your appeal. And I think at the end of July, then the state prosecution had to reply to your appeal. Is that correct?
That's true.
Yeah. And then, a lot of things happened, but not main events that, the public would have been informed of. But on the 17th of October 2025, you got a ban. A communications ban that said that you could only communicate twice a week for 20 minutes, and you chose to do that with your wife.
Yes, and twice a week for 20 minutes, but not. This was not a free and uninhibited communication. Yeah. Rather, it was monitored by one of the correctional officers.
Yeah. And then since then, I have to quickly look at my notes. You've had several attempts of getting your pre-trial detention lifted. You've had several attempts of getting this ban lifted, as I understand it, and you had several visitors, lately more international visitors, like British former MP Andrew Bridgen, I forget his name now, the UK column founder, what's his name again? Brian Gerrish, right? He came to you, and then lately there was Leland Lehman from America, who's from the surroundings of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he also took an interest in the Baalweg case at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's like more or less in a year what happened, but what also happened is your criminal case against the judge and the state prosecutor and many others who took you to court. And there have been two cases, or two legal avenues, so to say. One is a case that Reiner Fischer started against a psychologist and someone who is campaigning for you, Andrea Christides. And Andrea Christides won the case last week. And then there's another case of the people who reported you to the state prosecution. They are now going after Reiner Fischer.
Yes, exactly. And also Andrea Christidis again.
Okay. Okay.
But the prosecution in Andrea Christidis' case, her case is very closely intertwined with mine, because they accuse her of insulting the people who she talked about as a journalist.
Yeah.
But of course she did it, and this is completely okay. It is legal, because this is a battle for justice, and if this is a battle for justice, then it's not just the attorneys who fight it, but it is also the journalists who can use, who are free to use, stark language, as long as it's in connection with that case. And this is all in connection with my case, which obviously was a travesty of justice. So she's okay. So the prosecution asked her if she's okay with them closing the case, and she said no. I want to win this case, so let's go to court. Mm-hmm. And then once again, our people will be there, and this will be more. This will be another case that will be reported internationally. I mean, the judicial system in Göttingen, at least the criminal justice system, is already on the map of people like Elon Musk and others. So this place is definitely going to go down. But so are the guys who wrote the criminal complaint against me, who work for the deep state, who work for the Domestic Intelligence Service. One of them has been working for the Domestic Intelligence Service since her legal studies. And they are, as it turns out, they are the ones who pushed the prosecutors in Göttingen. I mean, they themselves are doing the work of the Inland or the Domestic Intelligence Service, and then they pushed the Göttingen prosecutors to file another criminal complaint against Andrea Christidis. They pushed them to file complaints against my attorneys, etc., etc. It's always them. It's always the deep state, and we know that because, as you probably have heard, Roger Bittel was able to retrieve at least 22 pages, a kind of a dossier that was kept on me, not by the Attorney General, who would have been in charge had this been a real criminal case, but by the German Secretary of the Interior, whose name was then Nancy Fraser.
Yeah.
And they are in charge of both the Domestic Intelligence Service and the DKA, which is the equivalent of the FBI. So that tells you right there that this has nothing. This never had anything to do with a criminal case against me. They fabricated it. This is only about political persecution.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start with your ban, because can you summarize how it came about? Because that itself was interesting.
Yes. Well, as we now know, as I just mentioned, this case, right from the start, has always been an unconstitutional and totally illegal political persecution. Why is that? Well, because the German Constitution in Article 16A explicitly states that anybody who is politically persecuted has a right to political asylum in Germany. And why did they do this? In order to shut me up, not just to keep me from getting all these cases going all over the world. Kind of, the blueprint for these cases was our model grand jury investigation. But it was the more important thing for them is to keep me quiet, to shut me up, so that I wouldn't be able to talk to people, I wouldn't be able to interview people, and people wouldn't. I seem to have an influence. It seems that people believe me when I tell them what I know about what I found out. And that's why they wanted to shut me up. So when they weren't able to shut me up because the people in Göttingen had transferred me to Bremervörde thinking that I would go under here, but I didn't. I met a lot of good people who are on my side now, who I helped with their cases. Some of the correctional officers I helped with other things. So I was allowed to make phone calls, I was allowed to write letters, I was allowed to communicate as freely as I wanted to. Why is that important? Because many people think that pretrial detention is designed to break people and to make it impossible for them to defend themselves. Yes, that's what it's designed to do, but it's not the actual purpose of pretrial detention. The actual purpose of pretrial detention is only to make sure that the trial or the case that the case against you is going to go forward, and you're not going to run away, or you're not going to try and influence witnesses, etc.
Yeah.
But here's the truth of the matter: people who are in pretrial, first of all, it shouldn't last any longer than 6 months. In my case, it's been 2 years and 8 months now.
Yeah.
The other thing is, people in pretrial detention must not be treated any different from people who are not in pretrial detention, who are free and awaiting their trial and preparing for their trial. So this is a great misunderstanding. This means if I were free, I mean, this incarceration, everybody knows it's a sham, but if I were free and if I were preparing for my trial, and you know, everybody knows that I'm more or less cooperating very, very closely with my attorneys. And I am in charge, actually. I mean, not just because I'm the defendant, but also because, I mean, I have much more experience than all of my attorneys. And so that's perfectly fine, and it's perfectly legal. So if I were not in prison, I'd be able to go to look at my files, to check stuff on the internet. I would be able to freely talk to anyone, freely do interviews, etc., etc. Now, I can't access the internet here, but I must not be kept from communicating with my people and doing interviews, because that's what I would be able to do when I'm not in pretrial detention, if I were not in pretrial detention. Yeah. That's the most important thing. So when they realize, the other side, when they realize, oh my God, he's once again able to talk to the people, he's once again able to communicate, we've got to shut him down. The first thing that happened is a letter arrived here, an email, I think, arrived here from a person by the name of Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, I think, that's her name. It's not a real person, it's a pseudonym used by Justus Hoffmann. So that's when they first tried to, I was called into the office of the man who runs pretrial detention and said, we have to respond to this. How about if you do not do any live interviews with Roger Bittel anymore? And I said, well, that's all right. So we'll just tape them. Then, a week later, because he hadn't shut me down, a week later, another email, this time from the very same person, only he was not trying to hide his identity anymore because he needed his identity in order to seem more powerful. So it was Justus Hoffmann himself, the so-called attorney. And he asked them to shut me down. Once again, he called me into his office. He said, we're going to have to respond to this. How about if we now decide that you only have 20 minutes twice a week with Roger Bittel, and we will monitor the first call when you work your interview, your plan for the interview out, and the second one we won't interview. I said, all right. Then came another email, because I was able to talk to anyone else. All of the people who had their phone numbers listed here, I was able to call them. My aunt, my sister, many of some of the supporters, and then another email. No, I think this time it was a letter. Came in from the prosecution, the Göttingen prosecution. That's why I told you that all of the criminal cases that have ever been brought against anyone in connection with my case were pushed by the very same people who wrote the criminal complaint, Justus Hoffmann and his co-conspirators. So this time, I believe it was also a push by the so-called Hafenanwälte in Berlin. This time it was the prosecution itself. They wrote to the guy who runs pretrial pre-trial detention and told him, or maybe to the prison itself, I don't know, and told him, we've got to shut him down completely because he's insulting people. And I said, I'm not insulting anyone. Yeah, well, it was harsh language. And I said, hey, come on. This is, first of all, I'm traumatized because I've been in a pretrial detention for 2 years, and back then it was, I don't know, 2 years and 2 months or so. And also, I've been badly mistreated. I have been in isolation, and et cetera, et cetera. Now we can't do anything about it. We're going to have to shut you down completely. You get, as you said, 2 phone calls a week, 20 minutes each, but we're going to monitor your calls. So my only choice was, of course, to talk to my wife.
Yeah.
That's how it all started. That's how it came about. And it took us 7 months to lift this ban. It was lifted a couple of days ago, I think, and now, of course, they're running amok. And everybody here knows it, and they're all trying to warn me, stay calm, don't say anything that may be used against you, et cetera, et cetera. We're all on your side, and I'm not kidding you.
Well, that's good. That at least, yeah, it's not as hostile as it was in Rostorf.
No, Rostov is a concentration camp.
Yeah, no. So that's good. And then, so the ban came, but I know there were several attempts to lift it, or am I wrong? Am I mixing it up with trying to get you out from pre-trial detention as well? Because there were several things that went to Göttingen, and then there were no hearings, I remember, and it was only the very same judge that convicted you that looked at the case. Is that correct?
Yes, it was the very same, yeah, we appealed this in-house decision, you might call it, because it was officially decided by the prison here. But in reality, of course, as they told me, they were pushed by the Hafenanwälte and by the prosecution in Göttingen.
Yeah.
So we had to ask for a lift of the ban through the court, because the court is in charge. So it was once again Schindler who said, no, keep him shut up. And that's when we filed an appeal, and it went to the district court, which in this case is Brunswick, and they ruled the way that they ruled. They said, no, this is all illegal, and if you want to go after him, he must not do anything that puts the order or law and order inside the prison in danger.
Yeah,
but
I thought...
if you think that you are being defamed or anything, then you're going to have to go a different route. File a criminal complaint against him.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a very interesting verdict. And also they said, because I got it from Seba's post, Substack, I think, that criticism of courts, authorities or public prosecutors is not automatically sufficient to severely silence somebody or restrict telephone rights. And then they said there was insufficient reasoning and blank assertion. And I guess the prison referred to reintegration, your reintegration being in jeopardy. But they said, well, reintegration is not a part of pretrial detention. What was this reintegration argument then?
It was totally false. It tells you that the people who were coming after me don't really know what they're doing. Reintegration only applies after the decision against you becomes final. And it's not pretrial detention anymore. Then you're really in prison. And that's the only time when reintegration even becomes worth mentioning. Not before then. I'm still innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
That's why it's still pretrial detention. There is no final verdict.
Were you surprised about this verdict, this for the ban? Because you've had so many backlash, setbacks.
Exactly. I didn't expect this.
No.
But maybe, things have been changing, not just slowly, but very fast over the last couple of weeks or so. Everybody can see, you can't see it on mainstream television, but everybody can see, one of the prisoners just told me, he spoke to his mother, people are about to explode in this country. They have had it. They saw some of the scenes, not on mainstream television, but on the alternative media, YouTube, etc. They saw some of the scenes in England of people demonstrating against all these illegal and criminal. Not all of the immigrants are illegal and criminal, but many are, because they were brought into our countries in order to, it's the divide and conquer thing.
Yeah.
People don't understand this yet, but they have had it. They don't, like Germany, for example, spends 25 billion euros a year on those, illegal and criminal aliens, and on others as well. Yeah. That's way too much.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we have the same here in Holland. There's also protests all over the place, and it seemed to come to a real explosion yesterday in Ireland when somebody was stabbed, but I don't know what happened afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah, but now about your appeal, the appeal to the verdict that, so in May you were sentenced by the written verdict to 3 years and 9 months. And they wouldn't subtract 5 months of your pre-trial detention.
So in effect, that was 4 years and 2 months.
Yeah, yeah. And so you launched the appeal, but it has been quiet for almost a year now. Is there any news on that front or not?
I think my attorney called the office of the Senate. They call those panels of judges at the Supreme Court, they call them panels of judges. So of the office of this particular panel that is in charge of my case, and asked them, because we had sent them a lot of stuff, not just the original appeal, which was filed by a very smart guy who made it a big point to point out all these formal mistakes they made. I thought it was much more important to make them understand what really happened, because the ruling itself that we appealed doesn't give you any idea what my case is really about. So that's why I wrote that criminal complaint and had Katja send it to that very, well, first of all to the Attorney General's office, but also, for your information, so to speak, to the Supreme Court, so that they would understand what this is really about, that this is really a political case, that I was abducted, all that white torture stuff. It was not included in the original appeal. And we also kept them up to date as to the now pending civil case and the motion for a preliminary judgment. So that's when she called and she asked them, when can we expect a ruling on your case? And they said, not yet. Somebody has asked for the files, and we're waiting for them to send the files back. And I thought, well, fine with me, but there are 2 cases pending now, either one of which can get me out. Either that appeal or the civil complaint plus motion for a preliminary judgment. The civil complaint, to me, is much more important because it also will give me damages in the end. It may take a while, but it'll give me damages. Or maybe they are going to settle the case when they realize that this is grave, grave, grave injustice. This is the most scandalous case, and I'm not kidding you, that has ever reached the courts in Germany. Because never, ever before was there a case before a German court in which the defendant, regardless if he was a criminal or not, but in which the defendant was politically persecuted and abducted for the purpose of political persecution. This has never, ever happened before. And the most important thing to remember about this is that even the German Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court, for many, many years, didn't really care which way the defendants were brought into this country and then brought before the courts. They didn't care, and this is a scandal in and of itself, they didn't care if there was an abduction or a real
extradition or deportation.
Extradition, because they have to go through this extradition proceeding. However, a few years ago, actually maybe 20 years ago, there was a huge case in the United States. A Mexican doctor had been abducted in Mexico and brought before the courts. The courts said, we don't care about abduction or not. We're going to hold you. We're going to continue with this trial. And then they did. And then he was found obviously not guilty. Obviously. And that's when everybody thought, oh man, maybe we should think twice about abductions. Because people who are abducted on the basis of an arrest warrant are presumed innocent until guilty. So this must not happen again. So people were thinking twice about abductions, including the courts, of course. The one thing that the German courts, both the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court, the Constitutional Court is only in charge of violations of constitutional rights, including the first 20 articles of the German Constitution, which includes the right not to be extradited for political purposes, which means, of course, not to be abducted for political purposes either. So they said, we don't care, but if there is, let me think, what's the German word? It's an extreme outlier case. Then there is a prohibition to prosecute, to put this case on trial. And this is the first case that a court will ever decide that this is an extreme outlier case, because it has all the ingredients. Everything is right there. Yeah.
So to split the three up, because you said, okay, this appeal, you've given your criminal charges as an extra, as a attachment, so to say. But what is actually happening with that file that you submitted to the state, the Attorney General?
Attorney General. Yeah. Very, very good question. This is what happened. As far as we know, I got this information from Katja. As far as we know, the Attorney General's office decided, this is the wrong place. We're going to refer this case to the right place. What is the right place? It's the DA's office in Göttingen. So the Göttingen prosecution was now asked to investigate themselves and indict themselves. Of course they didn't do it, so they just closed the case. We were just informed about this 2 days ago. Of course we're going to appeal this, and we're going to make it public, because this is another scandal involving Göttingen.
Yeah, but it is also a scandal. I mean, it's also wrong from the state, the Attorney General, because, I mean, he could have known that you can't.
Well, here's the thing. You've got to keep in mind that up until very recently, most people were extremely afraid to even criticize the mainstream media or our politicians. And this is especially true for attorneys. There is not one single attorney, maybe two, including myself. There's not one single attorney in this country that has the guts to call a spade. Like in my case, of course you have to go through with it. You have to explain to the court that this is political persecution, and you must not back down when they simply say no, it's not, or they ignore it. Like this is what happened in the court in Göttingen. But they were all threatened. All of my attorneys were threatened. Yeah. One of them got someone anonymously, of course, sent them a picture of his daughter. So that's a threat, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about the preliminary injunction, or whatever you called it?
Yeah. Well, I have just published a statement in which I explained that, as expected, it was a single judge who got this case. We filed it on the 28th of May, and on the very same day, within, 3-4 hours, she answered it. She cannot have read the case. She cannot have read the facts of the case. That's why she doesn't even refer to the facts of the case, including, of course, political persecution and abduction. And she only stuck to the formalities. She looked at the prayers for relief, or in
the request.
Request for, the technical term is prayers for relief. The request for relief. 1, release me immediately. 2, stop the criminal proceeding immediately. Because if there is political persecution, everything else that follows from this political persecution is just as unconstitutional as the original motive of political persecution. Everything, not just the white torture. The case, the fake case, or camouflage arrest warrant, as they call it. Professor Schünemann calls it that. Everything is absolutely, totally illegal. So I should be set free immediately. Of course, they don't want to do it. This is a political case, after all.
And what are the grounds that she stated for her to?
There's two things that need to be decided in a case that involves a motion for an injunction, preliminary injunction. 1, she has to look at the facts of the case and decide if I have made that case that I need to be set free, and that the case must be thrown out. And the other piece of the case that needs to be dealt with is, has he made his case as far as the urgency of the case is concerned? Urgency. You know, that's why preliminary injunction. I'm not kidding. She said, nah, we can't see any urgency. He's been stuck in pretrial detention for 2 years and 8 months. What the hell?
Yeah.
Should have acted sooner. Right. As if I hadn't done anything. Oh, man. And in the first section, she said, no, Section 8, in the first part of her ruling, she said, Section 839 of the German Civil Code. Now, this is my area of expertise. This is tort law, and this is a special Section 839, which deals with torts committed by public officers, including judges. However, 99.9% of all these cases involving public crime, so to speak, deal with mere, a building permit is not granted, stuff like that. Only 0.00 something cases deal with judicial crimes. This is one of those cases. And only point something percent of the cases deal with intentional crimes committed by a judge. In my case, this is intentional. As not just the individual mistakes he seems to have made show, but the totality of the evidence proves it beyond any reasonable doubt whatsoever. So she said, no, it is true. And by the way, two things are important. Section 839 is the section of the German Civil Code which explicitly says that these people need to be held accountable for their crimes. Public officials are not beyond the law, not even judges, not even prosecutors. And the other thing you need to know is their liability, civil liability in this case, is transferred to their employer, the entity for which they work, the state of Lower Saxony in my case. It is transferred via Article 34 of the German Constitution, so that the people who suffer harm because of such crimes or negligence, most of the cases deal with negligence, so that the people who suffer harm will have can be sure that somebody will pay for it, because most people just won't have the money if you go after them personally, unless they have insurance. So they go after. That's why they have to go, or we can go after the institution for which they work. This is called transferred liability, or the legal term is vicarious liability. You don't sue the person who committed the crime, you sue the employer of the person, in this case the state of Lower Saxony. And here's the thing, sentence 3, or lit 3 as they say in legal terminology, of this article says the route to the civil courts must be available. She says, nah, you can't go to the civil courts. This is a public case. You have to file in an administrative law court. It is totally wrong. This is, as they say in Latin, contra legem, against the law.
Yeah.
So this is easy to deal with. We have just, my attorney and I have just finished the appeal. We will file it tomorrow and we'll publish it.
And where will it be? Will it go to Hanover or to Braunschweig?
No, Braunschweig is the district court that's in charge of Göttingen, and Celle, C-E-L-L-E, is in charge of Hanover. So the criminal case went to Braunschweig, and the civil case will go to Celle. Very weird, two different district courts, but we are optimistic because Göttingen used to belong to the district court of Celle, and everybody was very, very angry when some 20 years ago they changed this. It just for one reason, to keep the district court of Braunschweig alive, because there was only one lower court, one regional court that belonged to the district court of Braunschweig, and that was the lower court of Braunschweig. So just in order to keep it alive, they decided to take us away from the district court of Celle, which has, I don't know, 12 or 13 regional courts, and they decided to make us belong to Braunschweig. But we are optimistic in both cases because there's been so much public attention, and now with the support of the American administration, or at least Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s department, we are even more optimistic.
Yeah.
There will be, if well, I won't tell you what's going to happen because
better not.
I should be quiet about it.
Yeah, better not. Okay, so there are 3 higher courts now involved. There's Hanover, Braunschweig, and Celle.
No, the 2 regional courts are Hanover, which was in charge and still is in charge of the civil case and the motion for a preliminary judgment.
Okay.
Göttingen was in charge of the criminal case. Now, with respect to any motion to get me out of pretrial detention, the district court of Braunschweig is in charge because this is still the criminal case. And then, of course, the third court that is still in charge of the appeal, of the general appeal, is the Supreme Court in Leipzig.
In Leipzig, okay. It's getting very confusing. Then you mentioned before that Roger Bittel from Bittel TV, Swiss channel, he managed to get a dossier of 22 pages above board, and you wrote, or you said in one of your statements, that 2/3 of it are redacted.
Yes, they're blacked out.
Yeah, but there was enough to go by to know that it didn't come from the Justice Department, but from the Interior.
Yeah.
And what else did he or you find in this the 22 pages?
Yeah, well, the most important realization, which wasn't totally unexpected, of course, is that it should have come. This dossier should have been done, a dossier on me and my case, or rather the abduction and the political persecution, but that's all blacked out. It should have come, if it were a real criminal case, it should have come from the Attorney General, that is the Department of Justice's department, but it didn't. It comes explicitly, that's not blacked out, from the Department of the Interior, whose boss, the secretary of which was then Nancy Faeser. And they don't really tell you anything, but the attachment is really interesting because that's all it's almost all of it is blacked out, and that comes from the BKA, which is the German equivalent of the FBI. And that's the reason for this is that the BKA, just like the Domestic Intelligence Service, the Constitutional Protection Agency, CPA, they're both run by the Department of the Interior. If the Domestic Intelligence Service and the BKA are in charge, this can only be a political case. There's no other way. And that's why everything else is blacked out, because this is what it's probably going to amount to is a perfect admission, an explicit admission by the government, because the Department of the Interior is part of the government, that this is a political persecution and an abduction. That's why they blacked it all out. However, one person, one prominent member of a political party, of course, of the AfD, Dr. Reiner Fuellmich is his name, a lawyer, he wrote to them, because the AfD is supporting me as well, because they are also supporting the doctors, all those, I think, more than 1,000 doctors who were either incarcerated and or lost their license to practice medicine. Yeah, over 1,000.
Oh my God.
Either incarcerated and or lost their licenses to practice medicine. And we don't know how many other political prisoners we have, but it must be many more, many, many more. Many of the patients of these doctors were also put on trial. So we'll see. So there is one member of the AfD who is a friend of mine and who has visited me twice when I was still in Rostock prison. And her name is Dr. Christina Baum. She is a dentist. And she understands every little detail of the PCR test scam. Every dentist should understand this, but she definitely understands this. And that's why she wants to help the doctors. She herself is a doctor. She's the one who got the Leland Lerman involved, or Bobby Kennedy's department, yes. And then they realized, oh man, there's another case. This may be even more important, and that's Reiner Fuellmich's case. And that's how then finally Leland came and visited me. They would have come a lot sooner. However, because, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and I know each other. We not just know each other, we like each other. And I'll stick with the case.
Yeah.
So why did they not come any sooner? Because a German attorney by the name of, Marcus Heinz, had infiltrated them and had told them that I was a crook and that the decision was correct and that they shouldn't deal with me. That's what happened.
Yeah.
But, of course, Leland Lerman, he saw through this, and ultimately he did decide, maybe because Bobby Kennedy, who is really, really busy and under a lot of pressure, and he gets all kinds of threats, etc. Ultimately, he stepped in and decided, hey, take a closer look because something's not right here. Then he came and visited, and now he knows something is definitely not right.
Okay, is there any chance of those 2/3 of those pages getting unredacted, or?
Yes, because the attorney who I just mentioned, Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, who Dr. Christina Baum asked to do something and inquire about the dossier that they keep on me, because we know that they kept a dossier on me. That's what Roger Bittel found out. Yeah. He went after them like a trained dog and wouldn't let go. So, and he's still going after them. And so Reiner Fuellmich wrote to them and said, it has come to my attention, he's a member of the German Bundestag. It has come to my attention, which means there was a whistleblower who told him this, that Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, neither he nor his lawyers have yet received the complete out file that you keep on him. So this is both a violation of German law and a violation of EU law. Now, this is clear, and now we're going to have to sue them. At the same time, we're going, I've got to be careful not to tell you any secrets, but we're trying to get more information from other people who have already signaled, high-ranking people, not just in Germany, who have already signaled, we have it and we'll give it to you.
Okay.
So we'll have it in a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah. Okay. Then to come back to that case that Viviane Fischer started against Andrea Christides from Action Resist. There were 3 cases, 2 got thrown out, but 1 went through. And to my surprise, and also the case of the Hafenanwälte against Viviane Fischer, what they want from Viviane Fischer is they want the gold. So they want 4.2 something million. They want the gold. They want her to pay your 700,000, even though Marcel Templin has already got more than that.
He's being sued, by the way. He's being sued for this money, not by us, but by the trustee in bankruptcy, because I'm officially in bankruptcy right now. So the trustee in bankruptcy listened to us, and finally he decided, okay, I'm going to go after him. I'm going to get that money. Okay. So he's being sued in Berlin for that money. Okay,
I didn't know that. That's good. But they also want from Viviane the payments that were made to your office for email handling and all that, and they want her 100,000 again, because they argue that she paid the 100,000 into her own account. Well, that was new to me, and it was sort of said. Andrea Christides did a podcast with her lawyer, with a few others, and it was sort of said there that they don't know for sure, but if that's true, then of course that's another very strange thing that affects your case.
Yes, obviously. Their complaint, their civil complaint against Viviane Fischer, this is a classic case of the evil people throwing each other under the bus.
Yeah.
So I could just sit by and wait until their dead bodies come floating down the river. I'm not going to do that. But I can't tell you what I'm going to do. No. But I will make myself heard in that case too. Yeah. And so it is almost identical to my own case. And if it turns out that they have no standing, they do have no standing. Why not? Because they are only shareholders of the empty shell corporation that never came into existence. This corporation never owned anything, nothing. Who owns the money? I did, Tobias Weizenborn, one of my colleagues did, and Viviane Fischer did. Because the corporation, this UG is what it's called. It's a small GmbH. It's a small corporation. In the United States and in England, this is a small corporation. So this small corporation, even though it was founded, it never came into existence because we failed, or Viviane, who was in charge, failed to get it registered. And when she finally did try to get it registered, this is at the end of, and I think it was in December, so November or December of 2021, so much time had lapsed that it was too late. Yeah. So it never came into existence. Had it come into existence on time, then the corporation could have gotten its own bank account. Since it never came into existence, it never became a corporate person, so to speak. It couldn't have an account of its own. That's why Viviane, understanding this, on our website, on the Corona Investigative Committee's website, never said anything about any corporation. She always said the Corona Investigative Committee, not AG or GmbH or anything, just the Corona Investigative Committee. So who got the money then? Well, since the corporation itself never came into existence and was never capable of getting an account of its own, we had to have other people fill in for the corporation. I was the one who did this as a favor to the corporation, thinking that a couple of weeks or so into the process, 3, 4, 5 weeks maybe, we would have, if Uganda would have gotten this corporation registered, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it. My bookkeeper said, I don't want to have anything to do with this, Dr. Fuellmich. And I said, please, it's just a favor. We just need it for a couple of weeks. Well, we only had the account for 2 weeks. And then my bank decided, oh, this looks like money laundering. We're going to cancel your account.
Yeah.
Then my friend and colleague, Tobias Weissenborn, stepped in. And he said, okay, if nobody else wants to do it, I'll do you a favor. But he kept reminding Viviane in emails, please, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm just doing it as a favor for Reiner. Please, finally get an account.
Yeah.
But she couldn't, of course, because, and we didn't know that, because she hadn't registered it. So who does the money belong to? The person whose account it goes into.
Mm-hmm.
My account, Tobias's account, and then later on when my account, I once again, after Tobias's account was also canceled, I helped out with one of my own accounts again, and that was canceled as well. So Viviane came in, I think this was in November of 2021, then she she used one of her accounts for the donations, and then finally, when we had founded, only Viviane and I had founded a new real corporation and got it registered, finally in, I believe, May of 2022, the corporation had an account of its own. But at that point in time, all the other money that had gone into my account, Tobias's account, and Viviane's account was really our money. It's just that we were not going to use it, but we were not bound by anything. Mm-hmm. There was no contract between myself and the corporation, or Tobias and the corporation, or Viviane and the corporation. We were not bound by anything. Mm-hmm. However, of course, all of us are lawyers, so we were not going to steal the money. That's why, obviously, Viviane and I then entered into loan contracts and had them listed in our books as well. Mm-hmm. So the guys who were suing them, the evil ones from Berlin, the ones who work for the Domestic Intelligence Service and do their bidding, they have no claim to any money whatsoever, or to any gold for that matter whatsoever, because the corporation never owned anything. I bought the money in my own name because the corporation didn't have an account or anything. However, of course, it was listed in the books of the corporation, and therefore I had more or less bound myself not to use it for the gold, for private purposes, and I never did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have no standing whatsoever, and this is what the court is going to decide, because now that this matter has exploded into the public sphere and people are looking closely, this time they won't get away with breaking the law. The courts won't.
Yeah. What about the money that Templin stole from the sale of your house? You say that the bankruptcy authority, so to say, is suing him.
Bankruptcy.
What will happen if they retrieve it? Will it come back to you, or what will happen?
Yes, I will get it back, because the only reason why we got this information from the trustee in bankruptcy is that he finally understands, because we sent him a copy of the criminal complaint, of the civil complaint, and of the motion for a preliminary judgment. He understands that this is a case of a fake bankruptcy, and he understands that once this is resolved, and it will be resolved soon, this is going to be my money. But for the time being, he has to do what he has to do, and that means he, instead of myself, because I can't act currently, he has to go after the money and sue the man who stole it.
Yeah. Well, be interesting what happens there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then about your visits, I mean, just say what you can say and don't say what you can't say, but UK column, Lehman, and then you had another Dutch woman, the Dutch woman who did the petitions. Yeah, we haven't even touched on your birthday petitions yet. But yeah, there's been like fresh new brigades of visitors, it seems like.
Yes, well, here's the thing. There's two women from the Netherlands who are going to come and visit me. I'm not sure if I can mention their names, but I think they've gone public anyway. So one of them is a great woman by the name of Johanna Freundlich.
Yeah.
She speaks perfect German, by the way. And, well, German and Dutch is more or less the same.
Well, she is German.
Is she really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she lives in the Netherlands, but she is German.
Oh, okay. Yeah. She's an artist.
Yeah.
And the other is Alexandra Delos. And she, for quite a while, she's been a very important supporter. She has given me lots of extremely important information that I and even Inka was interested in. And both of them are going to come and visit on is it the 13th? Yes, on this coming Saturday.
Oh, good. Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah, because Joanna, she also was the front for the Dutch petitions to the German ambassador here.
Yes, I heard about that.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So that's good that she's coming to visit. All right. Any news on the petitions? Have you had reactions from authorities about that or not?
No reactions, except maybe one informal one, because there was another little demonstration in front of the German embassy in Washington, D.C. And I won't name any names, but one of the employees, and they were demonstrating outside of the embassy, of course. They wouldn't let them in. And I think they also gave them a bunch of documents explaining about my case. And then at one point, one of the employees of the embassy came out, and I think he wanted to go home or something. And I believe that our friend Daisy didn't have the camera on, but she had her microphone on. And I don't know if she's ever going to say this in public or play this in public, rather. And he said, "Listen, I know exactly what you're doing. I'm a great fan, and I'm not the only one. There are many of us who are supporting him, but there's no official. That's an unofficial reaction.
Yeah.
There's no official reaction from any of the embassies yet."
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Okay, so
they're hunkering down and hoping that this case will go away.
Yeah.
But once the courts decide that this is obviously a huge scandal, they won't hold back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, lifting your ban is a plus, because at least you can then do interviews and get things out.
Yeah.
Are there any things that we missed that you want the audience to know about, developments that you can speak about?
Yeah. Well, the most important thing that I want people to know is that there are three things that are extremely important and crucial for my freedom.
Yeah.
One is good legal work, which I'm pretty much in charge of. And since I've now delved into my realm, into my area of expertise, tort law, I think that I still know what I'm doing. So I think I've written a really good appeal. We'll publish it, and I hope it's going to be understandable even for lay people. That's how I wrote it, not just for the court. And so legal work is important, but legal work alone will not do anything, because this is a political case, because the deep state, even though it's almost their house of cards, is about to collapse. It is collapsing right now, as you can see from what you told me and what happened in Britain, but also from what's happening in France and, of course, in Germany, where all of the leaders, all of the puppet leaders of these countries have the lowest approval rates, public approval rates of any chancellor or president or a prime minister ever in the history of these countries. Mm-hmm. They are actually hated. So it's only a matter of time. They're clinging on hanging on by a thread. It's only a matter of days, I think, until they finally collapse. So the legal work alone will not do the trick. Much, much more important is the public support. Much, much more important is that people spread the word. And this is what's happening. This is what's been happening over the last, I don't know how many months, but for quite a while. And it's having a real effect now. This is how I managed to break through to the Trump administration or to Bobby Kennedy's office because of this public support. And because finally somebody took a closer look and understood that this German attorney who had infiltrated, he's controlled opposition, who had infiltrated them is a liar. Mm-hmm. And that changed everything. Yeah. And the third most important aspect that must never be forgotten is, of course, how can I put it, the spiritual side of this. Mm. Because I think I can almost sense it. Many people who are much more sensitive than I am, Inka, for example, they can really sense it. Maybe I'm just imagining things, but I don't think so. Because, I can still, despite the fact that I'm in a place that nobody wants to be in, I'm still having fun. I'm still able to laugh. If my father was in here, he would respond the same way. But that can only be because of the support, but also because of the positive vibes, whatever you want to call it, the good vibration coming from the universe, whatever it is. But those three things, good legal work, great international public support, and then the universe is supporting us. This is not just about me. Mm-hmm. We're all in this together. I said this before. Trump, when they waged lawfare against him, he said, "This is not about me. It's about you, because I'm just standing between you and them." Mm-hmm. And the same is true for me. I mean, I'm not Trump. I'm not a president, but I'm someone who does have some influence. Someone who I think knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's true. Public support is very, very important. And creativity in that public support.
Yes, very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah, I remember once with Assange, there was somebody suggested, let's do a carnival, parade. And at the time I thought that was a ridiculous idea because it wasn't at all anything fun, it was a dire case and he was about to be extradited. And I thought, well, why are we doing a carnival thing? But it was a huge success because people really, they put all their creativity into costumes and whatever. There was music, there were lots of Ecuadorians, and because of the Ecuadorian embassy. And it was a huge parade with people coming from all over. And somehow along the way, you just felt it like the genie is out of the bottle. They cannot put this back anymore. Just because you're making it fun, you're sort of celebrating the resistance or the support for. And I think we can do a lot more in that sense, in creativity in your case, except there's always, So the petition was a really good initiative.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You have to think out of the box. That's the thing. You must not walk or trot the path that they have created.
No.
You must use your own path.
Yeah.
That's what creativity is all about. Plus humor. You need to be able to make fun of them.
Yeah.
Because even though it's not funny, what they're doing in a way is funny because it's so desperate. It's so obviously desperate. It makes no sense any longer. And even in Germany, which is probably the heart of darkness when it comes to the deep state, the deep state, as we know, is transnational. It's not American. It's not German. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm
Okay, I was wondering because sometimes you get cut off. What we can do, I can round off this thing and we can still talk on, but then it will, then you're more free to speak if you want, or I can round it off. I don't know how much time you have.
No, go ahead, round it off and we can still keep talking.
All right. So Reiner, thank you very much for this interview and hang in there. And I hear you have more interviews planned, so that is good. And I'm sure from all of Holland, from those in the resistance, we wish you well. And I hope to see you soon in person.
Well, thank you very, very much, especially for your support, but also for the Dutch people's support. I get many, many letters and postcards from Dutch people, also from French people, from the UK, pretty much from everywhere. But the Dutch are an especially powerful group, I must say, and I'm very happy to not just meet with Alexandra Delos and Johanna Fuellmich, but also with Peter Stassen again.
Yeah. Well, that's news to the Dutch people, I think. Then I'm gonna close off this recording and then we can just chat on if you want.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.